everybody, Sarah French here, the evening anchor for WCNC Charlotte, your local NBC station. I am so excited to be reading to you today. I'm going to be reading The Adventures of Sid and Eli, and this book was actually written by my friend and colleague, Allison Andrews. Did you know Sid and Eli are real people? Look here. This book is dedicated to my daughter Sydney, my nephew Eli, and anyone who knows the joy of having a cousin as a friend. May our differences never close our hearts to the possibility of friendship. Sid and Eli sat at the kitchen counter eating grilled cheese sandwiches. They had nothing planned for the day, but adventure always seemed to find them. Sid, short for Sydney, had long curly blonde hair. Eli, short for Elijah, had short curly black hair. What kind of hair do you have? Sid was loud. Eli was quiet. Sid was cautious. Eli was fearless. They didn't look the same, but that didn't matter. They were cousins and they were buddies. Sid and Eli laughed and chewed their way through lunch. "Let's go play," Sid ordered. She had a way of telling Eli what to do, but he didn't mind. Eli wiped the crumbs off his face and jumped down from his stool. "Be careful, you two," shouted Sid's mom as they raced toward the door. They stepped out the back door and into the sunshine, then headed straight for the mulch path that curved around the garden. Eli picked up a stone that was partially hidden under a bush. He looked at it, then threw it back down, deciding it wasn't interesting enough. In the corner of the garden, Sid found a stick that had fallen from a large oak tree. The stick was almost as big as she was. "Perfect," she declared, dragging it along behind her. At the back of the garden sat a little metal table on a small stone patio. The two buddies sat down, surrounded by a wall of flowers that protected them from nosy intruders. "What do you want to do today?" asked Sid. Eli looked around in search of a plan. He scooted off his chair and walked to the pond that sat just in front of the wall of flowers. He knelt down and put his hands in the cool water. "Eli, Mom said we have to be careful," Sid reminded him, sweeping a curl out of her face. "Look," Eli shouted, ignoring her warning. "There's something shiny down there at the bottom." Sid loved shiny things. She found them hard to resist. "Maybe it's a gold coin," she said as she knelt down beside Eli. They stared curiously at the shiny thing in the water, trying to figure out what it was. Suddenly, the wind picked up out of nowhere, and the shiny thing began to spin. It spun faster and faster and got bigger and bigger as it moved closer to the surface of the water. Eli reached out to touch it. "Cool," he said. Before Sid could say a word, the sunshine disappeared and the sky got dark. A hole opened up in the center of the shiny thing. The two buddies leaned in to get a closer look. The ground around them started to shake and the cousins tumbled head first into the center of the shiny thing. "Oh no!" they shouted as they spun downward. Down, down, down they went. They landed in a river of ooey gooey melted cheese. "Where are we?" said Eli. "I don't know," Sid replied, "but it doesn't look like the backyard. We are going to be in big trouble." Sid's mom always told them to watch out for each other. Now seemed like a good time to do just that. Sid grabbed hold of the edge and, dripping with cheese, pulled herself out. "I think I'm stuck," said Eli. Sid grabbed his hand. She was going to have to use all her muscles to get him out. She pulled and pulled, but simply wasn't strong enough. Sid started to panic. She could feel her heart beating faster, her body tensing up, and her palms getting sweaty. She really wished she had her blankie, the one she'd left on her bed like a big girl. It always made her feel better. Then Sid remembered there was one muscle she hadn't used yet. It was the most important muscle she had. Her thinking muscle. She took the stick she'd been holding when they fell into the shiny thing and used it to help Eli. "Let's get out of here," Eli said, sounding just a tiny bit scared. Sid followed him into the strange world. Rainbows were upside down like big smiles in the sky. Fish wore tennis shoes. Trees were pink and glittery. A smell of pancakes and syrup filled the air. "This is awesome!" shouted Sid. The cousins darted from the spectacular to the fabulous to the amazing, laughing and playing all the while. Sid was so busy dancing in a field of bright blue dandelions, she didn't see the giant caterpillar in her path until smack! The giant bug turned its big green eyes toward the tiny girl. It curled up around her waist and lifted her into the air. "Eli, help!" she screamed. Eli tried to find something to scare off the angry larva, but all he could see were flowers, 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 nothing but flowers. "Wait, that's it," he thought. Eli ran between the flowers, shaking them one by one and sending pollen flying through the air. It looked like a blue snowstorm. The caterpillar twitched, squirmed, and let out a great big achoo! It lost its grip on Sid and she hit the ground with a thud. "Ouch!" she yelped, rubbing her head. Free from the caterpillar's creepy, crawly grasp, it was time for the buddies to find a way home. Sid and Eli zipped away like superheroes racing to save the day. In the distance, they noticed the shiny thing floating in the sky, like a big, glittering golden sun. Right below it was a rock wall that looked just like the one on Sid's swing set, only this one touched the sky. Up they climbed and climbed and climbed. Finally, the two cousins reached the top of the rock wall. Taking Eli's hand, Sid shouted, "1, 2, 3, and they both reached for the shiny thing. With a big thud, Sid and Eli landed back beside the pond. They looked around. No more topsy-turvy rainbows, no more glittery pink trees, and whew, no more giant caterpillars. They had escaped the strange world and were back in Sid's yard. Feeling relieved, the two cousins busted out laughing. Just as Sid's mom called them back inside, they had no idea what had happened, but it had been a good adventure for sure. "Anything interesting happened today?" Mom asked as Sid and Eli walked through the back door. The cousins just looked at each other and smiled. "Nothing much," they said together as they kicked off their shoes and flopped onto the couch. Their adventure complete, it was time for a nap. The end. Hope you enjoyed the book.